Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the Schwep Fantasy Football Podcast. I believe this is going to be episode 7, and we are currently in week 8 of the NFL season here. Obviously, we did miss an episode 2 weeks back now. As you guys know by now, I am one of your co-hosts and current Schwep champion of the universe. Be like Mike in the house. And I'm gathered here today with my 2 other co-hosts. We got Austin and Ray-Bans in the building. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. It's weird. Last week we said episode 5. It was actually episode 6. We got mixed up with the whole missing the episode and whatnot. I'm excited for this week. It's a little late night pod. This is after the TNF game. We'll get into a little bit of that in the preview, but yeah, I'm excited for week 8.
Yes, sir. It's a little late, so the vibe's definitely a little different tonight. I'm currently in last place, just to kind of give you guys a little preview. So this was going to be a little bit dull of a little bit of a pod, but I think I'm gonna try to put some energy into it. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Hey, man, last place in the building. We got second place in the building. This is where the season really starts to get into like that must-win situation. Like, Ray, in my opinion, you were in a must-win game last week versus me, because you play me and then you play Max this week, and then you play somebody else next week who's like kind of weak. I forgot who. Yeah.
Pretty strong team.
But Kyle's banged up, isn't he? And he has some buys versus you or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. He has no.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's gonna be crazy. What were your guys' thoughts on the Thursday night game that we just watched?
I mean, pretty decent game. Kind of ugly from certain standpoints. I know that first drive. I personally, I'm an owner in this league of Chris Godwin. He was looking like a workhorse from the wide receiver position, but things kind of fizzled out. It's kind of looking like my boy Thomas Bradenson, right, is a little bit washed now. That's kind of sad, right? The guy won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, was pretty good last year, and I mean, I don't know what's happening now, but I mean, shout out the Ravens. You know, Lamar, he did his thing.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to see how like quickly Father Time's getting to Brady. Even like the last 2 seasons when you'd watch him, when he scrambles out of the pocket, you're like, okay, like there's a little something. But now it's like, nah, bro, that ain't it. He'd be running for like 2 yards and it's like a 12-yard run. I'm like, damn, I feel bad.
Every single time he rushes out of the pocket, you could see like the look of fear on his face, like, oh shit, I did not mean to do this.
Yeah, but, what about Julio? I mean, every time he touched the ball, it kind of looked like his body was just kind of decreasing 10% on the low
retire ASAP. Like, he's just, every single time he touches the ball, especially, I mean, we saw in week 1 or whatever it was, week 2, he like popped for that long catch and then he got up and his knee was just like destroyed. Where you're like, okay, typical Julio. Like, he's going to have one big catch and then he's going to be dead.
Yeah, I don't know, man. He has no separation right now. He was dealing with a knee injury, right?
Yeah, he's been dealing with literally everything, but like, what are they doing? Sending him on like end around running routes? Like, dude, he's 35 years old. Like, throw the ball to him on a slant. Like, I don't know what you mean.
I don't know, man. He's just down bad right now. They also, like, Scotty Miller and Russell Gage, they need to step it up for Tampa Bay if they really want to do things. And then it was just crazy to see how this revolving door of these Ravens running backs, like, you never know who's going to hit. And tonight, obviously, Gus Edwards did go out with, like, I'm reading now, it's like just a little hamstring injury, supposedly not too severe. And then we see Kenyon Drake, he runs in for a touchdown. He's got 7 carries for 62 yards, 4 catches on 4 targets. So it's just, you can never predict it. And honestly, that's why I kind of stay away from that backfield. I thought Gus Edwards might be like a good like waiver ad with J.K. Dobbins going out, but like it didn't even look like it in the beginning of the game when he was healthy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like you got a feel for Gus just because he's been out for so long. And then it looked like, I saw the play, it looked like he kind of like hyperextended his leg and they're like calling it a hamstring, but I don't know. It's probably just, you know, he just kind of tweaked something in there. But I mean, we saw obviously, other big injuries with Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman, and literally it looks like the entire Ravens team just going out. I mean, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews starting at the beginning of the game, Sevilla Likely, and then Mark Andrews going out, Vega Likely, and then what do you know? Isaiah Likely pops off, man. Isaiah's the new Mark, right?
Yeah, man. It's just Bateman was just really frustrating to me because we know he's been dealing with that. I guess he was able to like survive last week's game, but even then, like he kind of looked like pretty off, like not had a good step or anything. And then he just on that first target, like a little bit of a deep route, he hurts his foot again, which is just
His routes looked okay though. Like they were showing some of the routes before he went off, and like he looked crisp. But it just takes one little misstep or like just tweaking it a tiny bit for it to just screw you over, man.
Yeah, in general,
I got a feel
really
for the
don't
kid.
know in general, I don't really know what's going on with the Ravens. I mean, they did take the dub, but I mean, moving forward, I mean, their wide receiving core for a couple years now, especially this year, is looking. I don't want to necessarily say weak, but they're either injured or they're not producing at a necessarily high level. So, I mean, good jobs, kudos to them. But I mean, we'll see what happens moving forward. The Bucks trash out of here.
Yeah, Lamar's a king.
It's really hard for me to see the Ravens and picture them playing like the Bills or the Chiefs and being like, all right, they 100% have like a fair shot in this game, because I just feel like the Bucks stalled out a lot. Granted, like give credit to the Ravens defense. They were able to like really step it up and stuff. But even then, just I don't see like Mahomes or an Allen. Maybe it hurts, but like I don't see them stalling out at all like that to where Lamar is going to have to answer every single time. Granted, we saw without Mandrews, they're nothing. Like
they're nothing.
There's no middle of the field. Like Isaiah Likely and them, they were catching crazy third down conversions. Mm-hmm. You had Robinson, Florida Gator alum. He was really stepping it up. Duvernay, he does his little thing and stuff, but without Mandrews, they're really bad. He shouldn't be gone too long, but I just can't see them being like that powerhouse team that we might have thought they would have been. And it makes me question, do you guys 100% still think like Lamar's worth that $250 million contract that he wants?
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I personally think that Lamar feels disrespected that they haven't gone out and gotten him some sort of talent at the receiver position. And I honestly think he's going to leave. I really don't think he likes the Raven. Like he likes the Ravens and he likes the culture and stuff like that. But like they just got rid of Keese, who was thriving in a passing attack offense. Like Lamar likes to throw the ball, is very talented with the ball. If he had great receivers, would be amazing throwing the ball. And then he would be able to run that much more because the passing offense would just be crazy. Like now you just stack the box and put a spy on Lamar, and like your third string, fourth string cornerbacks can guard these bums. Like, you know,
I also saw.
I don't know. I don't think he's going to stay.
I also saw. I don't remember where I saw it on. Like, I think he was doing an interview like after practice this week, and he said it was kind of weird for him how this year was like the year where they really made their team like run heavy. Like the offense was strictly run heavy. When I thought in the past, I guess I would automatically assume that as they've been successful, they've been a like run oriented team, and Lamar was just really, really good. But he was like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like adjusting to it's been weird, which could play into your thing of like him kind of being like a little upset that they're not like buying into him. Like Dolphins, prime example of how you should buy into a quarterback if you're going to at least give him a chance, you know, like go draft a top wide receiver and then sign like a huge one in free agency. Like I could see them
protectors.
I could easily have seen them trading some picks for AJ Brown easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to see. I still think he's worth the money, but I really hope he leaves. I would love for him to come to Miami.
I don't want to hear it. Oh God, I was waiting for it. The entire time I was silent for. I was like, oh God, they're going to stay now.
If he comes to the Fins, man, that'd be crazy. I've been seeing some rumors that Kamara might be sliding to us. I don't know if it's true or not, but man, if we get somebody like that, that'd be really, really good. So yeah, that's a little recap of the Thursday night football game. We're gonna skip like booms and busts and recaps from last week in like NFL world and Schwep world, because we're gonna kind of practice like a little shorter episode this week, simply because we're having a guest on the episode next week. We're gonna have our first place person in the league, Cup of Don Julio, Mr. Antonio Vega. He's going to be a guest on the show. So with that being said, I'm just going to do a little injury report real quick. I only have 3 players on it, and then these boys here can chime in if anything else comes into their mind. And then we're just going to get into some Schwep matchups. So just to kick it off, this one was some really, really big news, kind of like was a bomb drop today by Rappaport. Jamar Chase, he's dealing with a hip fracture, and he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, man. Pouring out for my dog. Ray's favorite player in the league, man. Just really, really tough to see. The one thing that like kind of gets me heated, and makes me like question things is kind of the medical staff in Cincinnati. So he had that hip injury. He's been dealing with it for like 2 weeks now. And then in the Saints game last week, we clearly saw him right before halftime, like re-aggravate that. Like it looked like he was hurt. He was limping heavy. He was down on the ground for a bit. And then he played the whole second half, which to me is like, I didn't see him re-hurt it again, but maybe in doing that, it like made that injury a bit worse. And now we're seeing what happens because of it, like the results. So it kind of makes me like question them. Maybe they didn't mess up. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but like, I don't know. It's kind of weird that he was dealing with this injury and then he plays and then we see him get hurt and then they let him play and now he's out 4 to 6 weeks. It's really, really weird to me, especially in a blowout game like that. Like they had control of that game all game long. They were almost up 2 touchdowns the whole game. So I don't know, man, really weird there. Hopefully they should be fine. They've got some studs at the receiver position, but man, I know fantasy owners are for sure going to be missing their first or second round pick in Jamar Chase. Another one that's pretty significant as well, another big name, Ezekiel Elliott. He's dealing with a knee injury. He did not practice yesterday or today. He suffered the hit in kind of like the beginning of the game. I want to say first or second quarter, and he was able to play through it. The hit looked really nasty. There were some reports that saying like it was like a partially torn MCL, like all these other things, but I guess those were proven false. It might just be a bone bruise, I'm pretty sure. That's what I was seeing last. So tomorrow I think will be really telling on his status because it was crazy to me, but he's only missed 3 games in his 7-year career. So he's kind of like an Iron Man, like Zeke be doing that thing. I know, Ray, you're a huge believer in Zeke. Like you always show him some support. So
horses, you feel me?
Yeah, we've known in the past, like I'm pretty sure, what was it, last year or 2 years ago, he was dealing with like with a rib injury all season and he played through it. And then like the year before that, he played through another injury. I can't remember what it is right now, but he's been like that Iron Man. So it'll be interesting to see tomorrow for sure. Will give us some insight onto his availability. Granted, they do have the bye coming up. So if they want to be smart, they might bench him and we might be in for the first week of Pollard season, which would be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And then the last injury that I have here is Alan Lazard from the Green Bay Packers. He's been dealing with a shoulder injury. Quote unquote, what he said, he said, I heard a snap, crackle, pop during the game when it got hurt. So shout out to Rice Krispies there. But yeah, obviously that's not good. He already said that he's out for this Sunday night's game versus Buffalo. So that's going to definitely be hurting Rodgers. It's going to be a crazy game there because Rodgers is favored he's an underdog of 11 points or minus 11 in that game. This is the first time in Rodgers' career where he's ever been a double-digit underdog. And obviously Lazard is probably the cherry on top as to why they're that double-digit underdog. And maybe we'll see some more Romeo dubs or we'll see some tight end action there. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, those are my 3 injuries that I have written down here. Anything that you guys wanted to tap in on?
Yeah.
That was basically everything. Go ahead, Crunch.
There's just 2. Deebo Samuel is one. He's missed practice since basically last week's game with a hamstring injury. I don't know. It's getting sketchy. We're already to Thursday. He sat out both practices. So if he doesn't come back tomorrow, at least in a limited fashion, like you're really sketching for his availability in the game. And then just like one like recap that I wanted to go over because it was just funny kind of memes all over the place. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown got pulled for concussion, went in the medical tent, passed all of the tests and everything, and then couldn't go back into the game because of the new Tua ataxia rule, which is absolutely brain dead by the NFL. Like, no pun intended. Like, it's just brain dead by the NFL. And then he passes concussion protocols, and he's just practicing again. Like, I just don't understand what the NFL is doing. Why are we pulling players now when they get up after taking a hit? Like, it's the NFL. You're not going to get up after getting whammed by a 300-pound linebacker. Like, relax. Give them a second. Like,
I've got a feeling that after, I don't know how it works because, like, the Players Association really fought for this. Like, they really wanted this rule to be instilled. So maybe they're going to hear some backlash, like, in the offseason, like, yo, what the hell? Like, I should not be playing this game. What was even crazier to me was that Amon-Ra, when you click his player card and he's questionable and shit, his injury still says concussion. And it was literally proven like, yo, this man did not have a concussion. So there's clearly like a loophole there. It's just frustrating, man. I don't know. That Tua thing really, really messed up the league on that. But yeah, those are some injuries for this upcoming week. So make sure that you guys pay attention. Tomorrow's Friday, which is the most important day. We love to see our players like at least get in the limited participation when it comes to Friday. And with that being said, I think that we should just get right into these Schwep matchups. We're in week 8 of the season, guys. Like this is make or break time. This is where you get defined if you're really going to miss the playoffs or not. Luckily, like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, they're like pretty close. They're only a game or two out. So you guys have still got some time to make some leeway. So these matchups that we're about to talk about, they're going to be really, really important. Who wants to kick it off?
I guess I'll go ahead and start. A pretty big matchup with the league. We got SOS Teflon, the chatter, right? King V going up against Hollywood cooking them Hollywood boys, Rosie 98. A fellow co-host right here. So, I mean, pretty good matchup in regards to, of course, V and his new refined team. And then Rosie gets Josh Allen back. I know his running back situation's a little this week, right? He's got no Eki. So, I mean, I know things are a little bit tough the last 2 weeks for him. He was able to take the dub against me last week. Unfortunately, I kind of got the backlash in that in the chat, but we're not going to get into that, right? So, I mean, hopping right into it, we'll start with the QBs. For Shevil, he has Joe Burrow going up against the Cleveland Browns. Now, of course, usually, and I mean, moving forward, you guys know I'm a big Bengals guy on the side of my Colts, and I guess a little bit of the Dolphins, right? Joe Burrow's been going absolutely insane the past couple weeks. I think that's basically a trend that's set to continue, but remember, he is not going to have Jamar Chase for about a month and a half, so definitely could change things, although they do have a lot of talented guys like Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, so we'll see what happens with that. It's a middling kind of matchup for him. Cleveland's number 18 in fantasy points given to QBs, so I mean he's gonna get his regardless. I am kind of afraid of maybe it being a little bit slower of a matchup, with the Browns being a run heavy team, and then I think they're definitely, with the Bengals at least, gonna go ahead and try to get Joe Mixon involved. But I mean, for the most part, still a pretty good matchup. On the other hand, we have Josh Allen for Rosie. I mean, at the end of the day, we're gonna give it to Josh Allen. He's QB1 on the season. I mean, I would be an idiot to say anything else. They go against Green Bay, who, I mean, on paper, it is a bad matchup. The number 30 in fantasy points given to QBs, but at the end of the day, when you look at how the logistics of football, when your offense is so bad and it's putrid and your defense is on the field all the time, and you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, you know what's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, in general, it's matchup proof. We don't really have much to say about Josh Allen, so I'm definitely going to go ahead and give Rosie the advantage there.
So they also haven't played a good quarterback yet. Like now I'm looking at it, why they're ranked 30th for fantasy. They played Heineke, Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones. Like Daniel Jones has been good now because of the rushing, and then they played Mac. Yeah, no, he's been good now, but they played him in week 5, so we saw that game. It was like all right for him. New England, Tampa Bay, Chicago, Minnesota. So nothing too crazy.
Yeah, it's a smash spot too. It's Sunday Night Football against Green Bay. I mean, you know what Josh is gonna try to do off the bye. I mean, you know what's up with them boys in Buffalo, right? Especially as Dolphins fans, at least. Now at the RB1 position for Shevil, he has Alvin Kamara. I'm big fan. He's coming off 3 pretty good games in a row, 17, 18, and 25. So, I mean, after he's definitely healed up from that rib injury he had earlier in the season. He's doing his thing now. He's essentially matchup proof. He's actually been really efficient on the ground, but he is trying to go ahead and get his first touchdown, I think, since week 2, I believe. The Raiders, it's a middling matchup, right? Number 15.
0 touchdowns.
RBs. 0 touchdowns on the year?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's looking for his first of the year.
Yeah, that's
hopefully
crazy.
It's a smash spot. I mean, it is, I believe, the second highest over/under on the week. I think at like 49.5. There's definitely going to be points scored. And you even saw last week. I mean, even when the Saints aren't doing too well, Kamara's going to get his regardless, whether it be 5-yard rushes, 8-yard rushes, or some PPR points through the catches, right? So a pretty good matchup there. On the other hand, for Rosie, Darrell Henderson. I mean, look, I don't want to hate on it because everybody knows I'm a big Darrell Hendy type of guy, but I mean, he did. I think he's a little not injured, but he is coming off of an illness. He should play. Of course, Cam Akers is basically completely out of the picture. I think he's actually looking to get moved or traded or something like that. And he goes up against San Fran. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's San Fran. They're number 3 in points given to running backs. It's a tough matchup, divisional matchup at that. It's going to be nasty. I mean, honestly, brother, I think you're lucky to get maybe 7-8 points out of your boy right there.
Yeah.
But
I'm praying for a goal line. I'm praying for a goal line touch.
Yeah.
I mean, it might happen. I mean, at some point, the Rams got to look good, right?
I don't know.
God, through the air, maybe.
Now, I mean, next on the running back 2 position for Shevil, we have Dalvin Cook, a Miami boy, of course, for the Minnesota Vikings. They go up against Arizona, who it's an matchup again with Arizona. Everywhere it says on paper that they're a good defense, but I mean, whenever they actually play, the stars are definitely going to shine against them. They're number 24 in fantasy points given to RBs, but at the end of the day, it's a Dalvin Cook. He's still an RB1. I think they are also coming off of a bye, so well rested. I know he was dealing with that little shoulder injury, so that bye probably definitely was a little gasp, a little breather for him. So he's gonna come back ready to play. So on the other hand, Melvin Gordon, I know again I alluded to earlier. Rosie's a little issue with running backs this week. It's looking a little mocky that this week for him. Jacksonville, it is a great matchup versus running backs now though. Right, don't get it twisted. And I think this is kind of going to be. It's not going to necessarily be rainy and sloshy, but it's going to be one of those grind 'em out games. I do believe this is the London game, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is the London game, right? Rosie and I, before you go into that, Rosie and I were talking about this matchup before we started the pod, and it's interesting because on paper Jacksonville looks like a trash matchup or an amazing matchup, right? They look like a trash defense against the run, but low key before the last drive versus the Giants, they were kind of keeping Saquon in check, which really, really surprised me. And then he started chunking off plays in that last drive and got his yards per carry up. But I don't know. It's Melvin, so.
Yeah, and with the Saquon thing, that definitely was more of a workhorse thing. And with Melvin, we kind of saw it last week. I think he had like a 51% snap share. So, I mean, I know Rosie was hoping to at least get that 60, 65. I mean, hopefully things change. We'll see what happens. Is Russ playing this week? I think he is, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to play.
Yeah.
The only positive I have for Melvin is that Mike Boone went to IR. So hopefully now it's just Latavius Melvin.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah, that's the only thing that was nasty about it is that last week I remember when they were in the red zone, and I think Latavius actually scored last week. So I was like, oh,
Yeah, he
that was
did.
a little blow to the little Melvin hopefuls out there. So definitely at the RB position by Blood, it's definitely going to go ahead and go to Kings V, SOS Teflon, even though I hate to say it. Now at the wide receiver 1 position, pretty good verses here. For V, we got DeAndre Hopkins, who's coming off a great first week after the suspension. I believe he had 10 catches for 103 yards, and he actually had some balls that actually some PIs that he drew, some that he actually dropped. So, I mean, he's still him. He's still doing his thing. It looks like he hasn't even taken half or a quarter of a step off. He's gonna do his thing, matchup proof. On paper, bad matchup against a corner. I'm not even too sure who this is, Cameron Dantzler. But at the end of the day, I'm not really worried about who's guarding Nuke. It's Nuke, right? He's gonna get his.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Devontae Adams, right? I think you traded for him a week or two ago, right, Rosie?
Yeah, I traded DeAndre and Jamal.
Okay, perfect. And he's actually going up against New Orleans, who actually got torched by DeAndre last week. So I mean, they're number 5 in fantasy points given to wide receivers. So Devontae is definitely going to be doing their thing. As I said beforehand, second highest over under at 49.5 this week, right? Alluding to my little lock later on. So that game's definitely going to be high scoring, and Vontae's Vontae again, just like Nuke on the other side. So I think I'm going to kind of just give it a kind of tie there in that position, but I think I might give a little bit of an edge to Vontae just because of the situation, what type of game I think that is going to be. Next at the wide receiver 2 position, another player from that same Raiders and Saints game, we have Chris Olave, my preseason rookie sensation, right? Buckeye Nation. The Las Vegas Raiders, number 10 in fantasy points given to wide receivers. So it's definitely a basically a smash matchup for him. He's a great route runner. I think he's getting to that point. Granted, he's a rookie, but it's to the point where it doesn't matter who's at QB, whether it's Jameis or it's Andy. He's going to get his because he's more of a route runner as opposed to someone who has to rely off of, being 6'4" or super speed or super agility, right?
Yeah.
He has a really good matchup against an ex-Colt cornerback, Rock Ya-Sin. So he's definitely going to go ahead and do his thing there. He's an every week elite start at this point, no brainer, right, regardless. On the other hand, another favorite, right, of me and Rosie's, DJ Moore, right? DJ Moore is going up against the Atlanta Falcons, based on the fantasy games given to wide receiver basis. They are the best matchup in the league. He's coming off his best game of the season, 7 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Free DJ Moore. What are we talking about, right?
I know it hurts.
Yeah,
I know it hurts
go.
you to say coming off his best game of the season. I know it hurts you to say that.
It's crazy, right? I mean, at the end of the day, man, he's trending upward. They play the Falcons. AJ Terrell, I believe, is injured. It's not looking like he's going to play again. I mean, I love DJ Moore. He's super talented. At this point, he's one of those players where we got to believe in the talent. We got to believe in, CMC being gone, him getting more opportunities. So it is what it is. In regards to the versus Chris Olave versus DJ Moore, I'm gonna have to give the edge to Chris Olave, of course, just based off of consistency and what's been going on. But don't be surprised if you get 25, 30 out of DJ this week, just because, right? And at the wide receiver
statement.
and at the wide receiver 3 position, Gabe Davis for Shevil. Of course, Josh Allen is Rosie's quarterback. So whenever at least for me, whenever I have matchups like that, right, and I got the quarterback and they have like one of their top pass catching wide receivers, I'm kind of like, okay, I can kind of hedge a little bit of those points. But I mean, Gabe Davis, he's one of those home run guys in the league now. It seems like every time he gets a target or he gets a touch, he could take it all the way. Green Bay on paper, really, really tough matchup, right? It's a decent matchup against Eric Stokes. I think he's a second or third year cornerback. He's pretty tough he's a long, lengthy cornerback, so it's going to be kind of tough. But at the end of the day, like we said for Josh Allen, they're going to get theirs. It's Sunday Night Football, so definitely a pretty decent play there for Shevil. On the other side, Brandon Cooks. An every year favorite for mine. Definitely been disappointed to start the season. Unfortunately, we thought David Mills could get it done, but not even target share and Nico Collins going down can even help that situation. On the plus side, right, there's a silver lining, and that's that Tennessee is number 3 in fantasy points given to wide receivers. So, I mean, he definitely does have a chance to go ahead and do his thing. Granted, the Titans like to run the ball, so it's definitely going to be slow pace. Unless they go ahead and go by 20, 21, right? 2 touchdowns, more than 1 score. And then, of course, David Mills is going to have to throw to somebody, right? So, I mean, pretty even matchup, but definitely going to go ahead and have to give that to Gabe Davis on Shvevil's side. So, it's looking like, I mean, Shevil definitely is having an edge right now so far. Next tight end, right? Hayden Hurst for Shevil. Someone I actually started in a lot of leagues last week. He actually came through. Of course, the big plus with him, right? A big time plus for him is that Jamar Chase is gone. So there's a lot of targets up for grabs. Hayden Hurst has been pretty consistent, so I definitely think he's going to go ahead and do his thing. Cleveland is number 26 in fantasy points given to the tight end. So it is a tough matchup, but at the end of the day, I think the opportunity and the work is going to be there for Hayden Hurst. And actually, before the pod, I think I had some notes here. I think he did switch his tight end position, right, to Taysom Hill.
He had Taysom Hill
in.
He had Taysom Hill in, and then he switched it for Hurst.
Yeah, he still has Hurst.
All right, no problem. And then on the other hand, for Rosie, another season favorite from me, Dallas Goedert. Right. At this point, he's kind of become one of those tight ends who is set and forget. You kind of don't worry about it. I mean, he's on the Eagles, who have you got to guard. AJ Brown, you got Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's kind of just you got Devontae Smith on the right hand side. I mean, at this point, he's kind of just the type of player you're going to get your 10 to 15 from him. Pittsburgh, it is kind of on paper a tough matchup, right? Number 27 in fantasy points given to tight ends, but I mean, of course, I'm going to go ahead and give the advantage to Rosie there, just because Goddard's been really consistent. And I think he's going to continue to get that work. And I think this week he might actually go ahead and get a touchdown or 2. Any thoughts so far from you guys?
The one thing I'll say is that, do I sound like a hater in saying that? To me, Gabe Davis is like the luckiest player in fantasy right now. As in, like, these, like, the points he's been getting and stuff, they're on some crazy freak shit. Like, I don't think it's sustainable. And I think, like, this is the time if you're a Gabe Davis owner, I recommend you kind of try to sell high right now. After the bye, because I don't know if he can keep up this productivity of these like flingers. His target share is not that high. I don't know.
You guys love to say I just spew out stats just to sound smart, but at the beginning of the season, in the preseason, I think it was Gabe Davis was like ranked in such a low percentile in terms of his success rates at the wide receiver position. I think he wins like 32% of the time. Like his success rates were not good last year. So I wasn't that high on him, but it just seems if he just gets a slight step in man, singled up on the side, and Diggs is taking all the other attention, Josh is just going to throw the ball to him on a 40-yard like go route.
Yeah,
and he's just going to catch it because it's going to be a perfect dime. Yeah, every single time. And we saw that twice last week. So I do agree with you, but like that's kind of the Bills' offense. Like Josh Allen loves to throw bombs, whether is it going to be to Diggs or is it going to be to Gabe Davis? If it's to Diggs, like Diggs is having a 50-point week. If it's to Gabe Davis, Diggs is going to have a good week because he's going to have his like 10 targets with 9 catches and have over 100 yards. But Davis is also going to pop, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And then the other thing I would say real quickly is that I didn't know Nico Collins hasn't practiced back-to-back days with groin injury. Yep. So that boosts me for sure there.
It does.
And then I saw it right away in the Carolina game because I bet on that game. So I was really focused on it. Like without CMC, they were targeting DJ Moore in every little short route, every little sideline, anything like to move the sticks even a little bit, which to me is like is a plus.
Well, I think PJ Walker really likes DJ Moore as well.
Hopefully, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely see what goes on there with DJ Moore versus Atlanta this week. I think it's a pretty good spot. But next to the flex for these two fellas here, these two yentas, right? We got Leonard Fournette, who we actually just saw play on Thursday Night Football. Pretty good game. I think you guys are looking probably at the dashboard right now. I think he had 15 points this week.
14.8. He had 9 carries for 24 yards and a touchdown, and then 3 for 3 with 34 reception. 34 reception yards.
Yeah, so of course, one thing that was pretty interesting when I was actually watching the game is that the Bucs are really bad in terms of efficiency. I think they're averaging like 3.3 yards per carry, which is really nasty. I mean, Leonard's he's a power runner. He's never been the most efficient, but looks like this year he definitely has to rely on being down and getting those PPR catches and maybe scoring a touchdown or two, right? I mean, on the other hand, Isaiah McKenzie, Rosie, I know, brother, trust me. You switched it up.
I'm putting D'Onta Foreman for now.
Oh, D'Onta Foreman going up Carolina. I think they play Atlanta, right?
Yeah,
because
so
the Panthers stack.
Because what's his name hasn't practiced. Chuba hasn't practiced both days. Yeah. Chuba hasn't practiced both days.
Okay, so I mean, actually, if we're gonna go ahead and talk about D'Onta Foreman, right? Pretty good play. Right, I think he had a nice little scamper at towards the end of the game last week, and again with Atlanta, their defense just isn't too good, whether it's passing or it's run defense. So I think that's a pretty good spot. I mean, I think you're kind of touchdown dependent there. I don't think did he have a target or two last week? I don't think he's too much of a PPR back.
They didn't. I just don't think PJ Walker he had 2 targets for 27 yards, but it doesn't. I don't think PJ Walker's kind of like a dump off guy. Because I was looking at the other running backs, they didn't really get targeted either in the offense. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like he is a solid play because all I can remember now is Mixon just destroying these kids like with these little dump offs and stuff. So maybe if they watch tape the right way, they could use D'Onta in that way this week.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I definitely think D'Onta is gonna have efficient week. He's gonna have 5 yards per carry, I think. But we just gotta hope that he goes ahead and get that touchdown, which I think he can do. I think it's gonna be one of those games that's pretty high scoring that everybody might not think it is, but I think it'll turn out to be pretty opportunistic for a lot of players on both teams. Just really quickly, I know we don't like to get into kickers and defense too much, but of course, Graham Gano for Shevil. I'm going up against Daniel Carlson for Rosie. Of course, I'm gonna give the advantage to Daniel Carlson. I know me and Rosie were big fans. I mean, he's different, right? He's looking like a younger version of Justin Tucker out there. So, I mean, on the other hand, for the defense for both these teams, for Shevil, we have the Patriots against the Jets. I mean, good defense on paper. The Jets, they did just lose Breece Hall. It's looking kind of nasty over there. So, it's probably going to be a low-scoring game, another divisional matchup. So, pretty good for Shevil there on the defensive side. And then for Rosie, the Broncos versus the Jaguars, which, I mean, the Broncos are pretty set and forget. They're elite on both sides, whether it's passing or run defense. So, I mean, overall, gonna definitely have to go ahead and give the advantage to Shevil. As much as if you guys, right, everybody out there watching, if you guys could see the rankings, you guys would see where Rosie is and see where V is and be like, Ray, like, what are you talking about? But then when you actually break down the matchups as we just did, you're kind of like, okay, that trade that V had go down a couple weeks, he's definitely looking like a hitter if he can go ahead and grab some string of wins.
Yeah, it pisses me off that kids were so quick to pull the trigger for trades when sometimes in fantasy you kind of just need to let your team soak in and kind of hit that 5, 6, 7 weeks into the season to really get a gauge on where the team is going and kind of pay attention to, okay, what are their matchups looking up like for the rest of the year? What are their playoff matchups looking like? What are the injuries on the team? And it's like, I said it when Dan and Zvi made their trade, like, I think losing Leonard Fournette was the worst part of that deal. Like, it just hurt Dan so much. And now it made Zvi a super team. And now with Mike Will, thankfully, I mean, not thankfully, like, I hate that Mike Will went out, but thankfully, in terms of our league being balanced, Mike Will went out and Zvi, got a little bit worse at the wide receiver. But I mean, that was just an absolute fleece from Zvi,
Yeah, 100%. I thought Daniel won that trade by a landslide. Mm-hmm. And obviously I've been wrong so far. We also kind of underestimated the window for Keenan Allen to get back. I thought he'd be back pretty a lot quicker than he did. So that really sucked. But yeah, I'd have to agree. You're picking Zvi to win, right?
Yeah.
Kranz?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that Darrell Henderson and Deontay Foreman are going to do better than both of you guys think. I think they are going to get it done. And I think that your game is going to be a little bit closer than, just like, I know you came in, you're like, there's no way I'm winning this. Like, I'm giving Zvi the win, basically. But I think it'll be closer, but I will pick Zvi to win just because of the chalk. Like,
yeah.
It's too much.
Like, as Ray was breaking it down, and I was like, I don't think there's not a chance. Yeah. I feel like I had less of a chance last week versus Ray, and I still somehow was able to catch that W. So you never know. Like, anything can happen.
And before we move on, I did have to go ahead and say that, Zvi, remember, this is fantasy, but we're also with the boys. It's our homeboy Mike. So not only are you going up against his fantasy team, but you're also going up against the Voodoo. So you got to watch out, my boy. All right?
That Peruvian Voodoo never lost. But yeah, in this one, I'm probably still going to I still have Zvi winning it just because his team's clicking on all cylinders right now. The matchups aren't that good, but you gave the advantage to Tay over D-Hop. For me right now, I'm giving the advantage to D-Hop. He literally had a 90% target share, which is blasphemous mental, or 75%, which is insane for a first week back. Without having Keith there, he's just going to be a PPR monster. Which is really going to help him out. So I don't know. Plus, Tay's dealing with a flu, they're saying, which I don't know. Maybe he could be MJ and have a flu game for me. But other than that, I don't know. It might be a close week. We'll see what happens. But I'm definitely going to pick Zvi. So we all have Zvi winning that one. And then Kranz, do you want to do the next breakdown?
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and I was granted just a beautiful gift in the matchup between Shevil, my number one op. Thanks for the dub last week, bud. I'll take that to the bank.
Oh, wow.
Hit me up in Dynasty. We can do a little work. You know what I'm saying? We got to work on that trade a little bit. But Mr. Shevil versus Vega. Like I said, last week I sent Shevil to the gulags in 4K. Snap. Everybody got to see it. He was talking that big talk. But this week it's even tougher for Sevilla. He's going up against Mr. Vega, top of the league. Thankfully not undefeated anymore. Mr. Zvi took him down. But it's really tough. This week, Mr. Sevilla has a lot of Qs, some big Qs for his team. And, he has Swift back, but just some crazy Qs. I mean, he's got obviously Amon Ra, which is a weird, questionable. He's got Zeke, who's dealing with the knee. We saw Mark play tonight. He was questionable coming in. He went out with a shoulder injury. He only got 6 points. It's just super tough for Sevilla. His team has slightly been on a downtrend, Ever since the trade, which oddly enough is weird, thinking getting like a huge running back would be great. But since that trade, he's been on the downtrend a little bit. There's no big buys in this game, just Juju Smith-Schuster, who isn't really too crazy of a buy. It's, he's a slot him in flex. Sevilla has somebody to, he has Devontae Smith to play in his place, basically. So he doesn't miss too much of a step there. But again, like I've been saying the whole year, Vega's core, his mental core, his first four guys have very good matchups. Just with Lamar, who this week versus Tampa, who is poorest, he just got 25 points, basically 26 points.
Yeah,
He's got
really
Saquon. He's got Saquon versus Seattle. I'm telling you right now, Saquon is going fucking nuke this week, like absolutely mental. Miles Sanders versus a Pittsburgh team that cannot stay on the field. Especially with Eagles defense, who's going to take them off the field 3 and out, maybe 10 times in the game. And then, of course, Cooper Kupp, they're not going to be able to run the ball in San Francisco. They're going to have to throw the ball to Kupp a ton. So that mental core of Vegas is just crazy. And, it really comes down to Sevilla needing his big questionables to at least play, which we saw Mark Andrews play, but play and get him some production, which Mark Andrews is one of his big producers that he needs to hit for his team to take a W. Otherwise, his team is just taking a big L. It's really, really tough. Vega has a very good team. You basically need to have a monstrous team or have like really big pop-offs to play up against Vega, unless Vega has a bust week. Like I said, expect Saquon to nuke this week. They are only 17th DVOA against the rush, but they are 28th in fantasy points per game to the running back. Like Saquon is just going to go crazy, man. We saw last week he kind of was slow in the Jacksonville game, and then he just started going crazy. That fourth quarter game-winning drive that they ran the ball like 10 times in a row. I think it was Dan Orlovsky did like a breakdown. It was like play after play after play. They would just do outside zone run, run up the middle, outside zone. And it was just Saquon with a 15-yard run, a 20-yard run, a 10-yard. Like he's going nuke, man. Seattle is not going to be able to handle him. Normally I would say, and before I go just matchup by matchup, these are just some of the notes I had written down. Normally I would say this is a big spot for Devontae Smith because we've seen without TJ Watt that the Steelers defense has been pretty easy to pick apart. But the past 2 weeks, their zone defense has really locked down some of the best wide receivers in the league. And so I'm hesitant to say that Devontae Smith is a really good slot in play that is going to pop off for a lot. I do like him as a play, but normally I would say he's a banger, but I'm hesitant to say that just because the Steelers secondary has been solid these past 2 weeks. So just going breakdown by breakdown, I mean, Lamar with 26 versus Geno. Geno Smith is going on paper against a tough Giants defense who played Jacksonville last week. They didn't give too many points to Trevor Lawrence. They've been pretty solid against the QB, and Geno Smith has, since his really strong start, has yet to give us like a true super pop off again. He played the Chargers last week, which we all thought was going to be a mega massive game, and he only had like 17 points. So obviously I'm going to give the Lamar the dub there. I'm a little biased seeing he already got 26, but 26 is a really solid week. And then the RB1 position, of course, D Swift versus Barkley. You love to say that, running backs against Miami, it's an easy spot, but I'll say it again. I said it last week. We saw Dalvin Cook kind of get locked up in the run game. We saw Najee Harris granted their offensive line is not great, but we saw Miami kind of slowing the run down a little bit. It's a good matchup on paper in terms of fantasy points per game, but I think Saquon is nuking. I'm going to give the W to Saquon there for sure. And then we got Dameon Pierce versus Tennessee and Miles Sanders versus Pittsburgh, the Steelers. This is a tough matchup against the run for Dameon Pierce. Tennessee is actually, I forget exactly what number they are. They're third in fantasy points per game given to the running back, which is a really, really tough matchup. They've been just locking down running backs. We saw, obviously, Jonathan Taylor have a really tough time. So I love Dameon Pierce, but on an offense as potent as the Eagles going up against a team that is not going to put up a lot of points. Miles Sanders is definitely going to get a lot more opportunity. I think he's definitely going to outscore Dameon Pierce in that one. And then wide receiver 1 position, super matchup, Diggs versus Kupp. Obviously, this is even.
That's a tough one. That's really tough.
This is even to me. Diggs going up against Green Bay, who on paper, Jair Alexander, is a tough matchup, but Jair Alexander's been getting cooked by some of the better receivers in the league. He got cooked by Justin Jefferson. He got cooked by Terry McLaurin. Like he's been getting sauced up. So maybe he's coming back on a revenge game. He's trying to hold down Diggs. Like, I don't know. But then you got Kupp versus San Francisco, who also is technically not a good, it's a tough defense, but on paper, their secondary is not that great. So I call it even just because the Bills' offense is so nasty that you cannot disrespect Stephon Diggs, but I will give that tiny little edge to Kupp for the matchup. Like, they're just both gods. It's just who pops out, who pops off, where the game script goes. And I think that Kupp is going to have a better game script. The odds of Kupp having a better game script are way better than Diggs having a good game script. Then we got Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Amari Cooper. This one's easy for me. Amon-Ra St. Brown is about to cook the fuck out of the Miami Dolphins. I love the Miami Dolphins, but we are absolutely trash cans at the cornerback position right now. Sure. We do have some really solid undrafted free agents, rookies here and there that have been really stepping up, Cater Code, but they're all injured. Xavier Howard just filed a lawsuit against him for giving a girl an incurable STD. We're on the down. Our defense is just, what the hell is going on over there in Miami? So, and Amari Cooper's really boomer bust this year. He's been okay for his draft position, drafted in the late 7th or 8th or whatever. But Cincy is a tough matchup on paper. Amon-Ra, I think this is a bounce back for Amon-Ra. The Lions are going to have to throw the fuck out of the ball. I really do think the Dolphins are going to put up 30, 40 points on them. This is the week that the Dolphins should put up a lot of points, so they're going to throw the ball a lot. So I'm going to give the win there to Amon-Ra.
The one thing I'll say maybe that'll benefit Amari is that if the Bengals could run it up.
Without Jamar, it's a lot. I really think that losing Jamar is a significant. It's not crazy, but I think it is a significant step down for that offense. Just because he opens up. I saw a video. They showed what Jamar Chase does and makes defenses do to basically take him away, and it just leaves so much of the other pieces on the offense open for play. So I don't know. We'll see. It's Jacoby Brisket, man. He could literally have 10 points. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. And then we got Devontae Smith versus Jerry Jeudy. Like I said, Devontae Smith versus Pittsburgh. I would normally say this is an auto smash spot and he's going to destroy Jeudy. I still think that Devontae Smith, I would give the W to him over Jeudy just because we've seen the Broncos be dog meat week after week after week. Jerry Jeudy is really the wide receiver 2 there. There's questions around if he's going to get traded. People talking about him going to the Dolphins. People talking about going to the Chiefs, this and that, whatever. I don't know. I just don't see Jerry Jeudy doing really well, and you can't fade an undefeated offense. You just can't fade an undefeated offense. So I'm going to give the W to Devontae Smith there. And then I had Mark Andrews handedly beating Kittle just because the Rams are a tougher defense in terms of tight ends fantasy points per game wise. But since we see that Mark Andrews got 6 points in this matchup and went out injured, I personally think Kittle is probably going to get 10. I was expecting Mark Andrews to get 15, maybe 20, and Kittle to be in that 10 range because Kittle has been popping out. He's really been showing out now. He's a little bit healthy and he can stay on the field. So I'm definitely going to swap that and give, it's weird that we're doing this after TNF, but I'm going to swap that and give Kittle the dub. And then at the flex, just 2 questionable, broken knee bums. We got Zeke, who we all don't think is playing, missed both these practices with the knee injury in a solid matchup versus Chicago, a good matchup on paper fantasy points per game wise, but their defense they always step up, but a good matchup versus James Conner, who's going up against Minnesota, who is not that great of a matchup on paper. And James Conner has not been efficient. We haven't seen him back with DeAndre Hopkins opening up the field more for him to get his dump offs and him to be a little bit more efficient on the ground. Obviously, we saw Benjamin go absolutely nuke. So if James Conner does come back, I think he's been limited with the ribs. So if he plays, that's obviously going to be better than Sevilla can play Raheem Mostert or Alec Biersch. Who both have solid matchups. I really like Raheem Mostert. I think he's an absolute baller for us this year. That is one of our best signings. And versus a Detroit defense that is horrendous against the run, in a game script which will probably call for us to run the ball a lot more. So, I would, Sevilla, if you're listening to the pod, which I know you're not because you're a bum, put in Raheem Mostert. And then so if he puts in Raheem Mostert, I'll probably give that the dub over James Conner. I don't really like James Conner this year. He hasn't shown us he can do anything of what he did last year. And Benjamin is just a better running back than him at this point in time. He can stay on the field more. He's been more efficient. So I'm going to give the dub there to Raheem Mostert. But overall, unfortunately for the league, which it's kind of good, honestly, for the lower part of the league, now that that's Vega's pulling so far away, it's unfair that he's just going to have a bye because I hate Vega having a bye, but I'm going to have to give a pretty easy dub to Vega. I don't usually give easy dubs when we talk about these matchups, but I'm going to give an easy dub to Vega for this one.
I definitely have to agree. Sevilla did tell me, I was on FaceTime with him and Daniel a little earlier tonight, and he did say he was probably going to put Mostert in there. Mm-hmm. So at least his head's in the right space with that. But the Mandrews bust with the injury really rocked him.
Plus Lamar.
Yeah, plus Lamar having a very, very solid game. Yeah. Gino's going to have to really work because the Giants have a pretty good secondary this year. Their defense in general has been pretty solid. So I think it's just going to be really tough for Sevilla to overcome this, which is huge. Like you said, it's huge for the league in a way that if there's teams that are really, really ahead, all right, man, just be good for the rest of the season. We get it. You're good at fantasy this year. And we'll try to see you in the playoffs like I did with Vega last year. He was the 1 seed, I think, and you were the 2, and I was able to beat him after the bye. Sometimes you just got to side with that, but I'm going to have to agree with you here, and I'm going to go with Vega.
And then for me, I think I'm also going to have to go ahead and agree with you guys, mainly just because, like you guys said, and really what Kranz was alluding to early was that core, right? He already got 25, which is solid, a little bit above average for even a QB1. You got Saquon, who I also agree he's honestly due for a 30-40 spot this week. He's going crazy. And then honestly on the downside, right, even for Sevilla, even though he does get Amon-Ra and Swift back, remember Swift, he's been a little bit glassy, a little paper mache the past couple of years, coming back from the ankle injury. He's probably not going to get too much work. He's the type of player you got to go ahead and start whenever you have him. But for the most part, he's definitely going to be limited to some fashion. And then just in general, Sevilla's just going to have to really rely on some super weeks at the quarterback position for him, for Gino. As much as I love you, gang, I don't think it's happening for you this week, right? Which I know Vega would fucking love, right? But in general, right, just because the matchups and just what Vega has, he's 6-1. It's really annoying that I have to go ahead and say he's the best team in the league, or he has the best team in the league. But we're going to go ahead and give that to Capadon Julio.
The one thing I'll say is, go ahead, Kranz.
Well, no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
The one thing I'll say is, with Jamal Williams fumbling the ball on the 1 last week, maybe that benefits Swift and he'll finally start getting some red zone touches. I don't know.
I don't know. I really think that Dan Campbell loves Jamal Williams.
Yeah,
Jamal Williams is an absolute captain in that offense. They love him. He came out and he got the ball for the rest of the game as well. So I don't know. Listen, Seville, I'm sorry, but we may end up seeing you outside of a playoff position for the first time this year. Keep your head up, my guy. Just understand you can always fight back and get back into this thing. You could start 0-3. You could be an 0 and you can make it to the playoff spot. I don't know. We're going to see him fucking implode. He's been at the top dog position, being able to pie everybody, but who knows? So, but let's get to your matchup, Rosie.
Yeah, man. In fantasy, it's all about resiliency sometimes. You just got to just trust your gut and just work through it, So, Seville, we'll see what's good, man. Back against the wall, we'll see how you act. I know you're one of those kids, man. Back against the wall, you start to get a little nasty, so we'll see what happens. With that being said, I'm going to slide over to my matchup. In this one, I've got JT, Do You Love Me? Obviously, our co-host right here, Ray-Bans. with a record of 2-5, and he's versing Trump Trade, which is our boy Max B. And he has a record of 3-4. So this is like a pretty one of those matchups I was alluding to, where it's a really make or break week for some of these teams. So at the quarterback position, in my notes, I had Tua versus Jimmy G, but I did peep that Max is now subbed in Stafford. So we've got Tua, who I have as my QB6 this week. I think he's in a really fantasy-friendly matchup versus Detroit. They rank 23rd in points allowed to QBs. And I just have a really good feeling that this is the week this high-octane offense that Miami has, I think will kind of finally started to, like, come into fruition a little bit. I think Tua is going to be able to, like, kick some of that more rust off of him. I really think he's going to be able to
call your homeboy and tell him to get it done this week, all right?
Yeah,
100%. I think this is that 1 week, especially with Waddle and Reek. Like, I think they're going to absolutely tear this Detroit secondary apart. So yeah, I just think it's a really good matchup for Ray. Did you just scooped him off of waivers, didn't you?
Yeah, and it's really crazy because last week I took him down. Not that it would have made too much of a difference. I took him out and put in Tom Brady, and a couple of changes that I actually made last second kind of cost me that dub there. But I mean, you win some, you lose some, right?
Yeah. I was listening to fantasy radio, I think like 2 days ago, and I didn't like write it down or anything. But this girl was spewing. She was more of like a DFS expert, but she was saying that this year, like, the quarterback drop off and like their average points per game is like the lowest it's been in like 4 to 5 years. Whereas in like these quarterbacks that like both of these kids, like Max and Ray, are starting like a Tua, a Stafford, a Goff. Like those quarterbacks who were ranking from like the 10 to 12 range last year were averaging like 21 points per game. And that number has dropped to 17 points per game this year. So like the quarterback position's really, really been like, if you don't have like Josh, Mahomes, or Hurts, like you do not have the advantage at the position at all. So I wrote that down. And I thought it was pretty interesting to hear that. So yeah, it makes these quarterbacks in this matchup like essentially a toss-up. And then on Brown's side of the ball, I'm happy that he subbed out Jimmy G. I didn't like Jimmy G's matchup this week. I thought Stafford would have maybe a little bit more ceiling. It's just tough though. It's just a wonky game. I don't really know what's going to happen here. I wrote down, I think that Brown, I don't know why he hasn't yet. I would 100% take Daniel Jones off the waivers and put him in for my starting quarterback this week. So if you're listening to the podcast, Brown, I'm trying to give you some advice here. Definitely scoop Daniel Jones in this one because I think the matchup is good. I think there's some potential there for a shootout. Whereas in this divisional game, we kind of know what we're going to get. We saw it 3 weeks ago, and Stafford had a really, really bad time. Jimmy G was able to get stuff done with Debo working his magic kind of. But it just was a nasty time for Stafford. Maybe there's some bounce back this week with hopefully their offense starting to get a little bit more in sync and stuff. But all in all, I got to give the advantage in the quarterback position to Ray here because I think Tua is in a really good spot and the matchup's great. And then moving over to the ground game, we've got on Ray's team, Aaron Jones and JT. This is really like Ray's identity of his team. These two core running backs, this is what he put his draft stock into. And it's going against Najee Harris and Kenneth Walker, who's on Brown's side of the ball there. So Aaron Jones, he doesn't really have an ideal matchup this week on the ground, but he's kind of been matchup proof because of the targets that he gets. With A.J. Dillon kind of being like fleeced out of that role, that solid 50-50 back that we thought we would see with maybe some targets, it's kind of been just Aaron Jones like feasting on these targets and stuff like that. He had 10 targets last week that he turned into 9 catches for 53 yards and 2 touchdowns. And one of those touchdowns was absolutely sick. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Rodgers threw like this laser on like a tightrope to the corner, and he was literally able to do some like Jamar Chase type spin and like grab it. Yeah. It was just nuts. That's why you draft Aaron Jones, because he can make any play happen on any literal second. So I think that it's like I said, the matchup's not the best, but I think Aaron Jones is going to be game script as well. I think it's going to be good. Buffalo ranks number 1 in defense versus the rush and number 4 versus the pass, according to DVOA, which is just nuts to me. I was looking at that, I was like, damn, dude, these Jits are just so well rounded. It's just not even fair to think about. It makes me so mad because they're in our division and we have to play them twice. But excellent point there. Like, game script is really something that makes Aaron Jones matchup proof in a sense, like how I started this off. That's why I don't have him as a crazy high running back, but the ceiling is super, super elite this week because Aaron Jones got to get the ball to somebody, and with Lazard out, I think that opens up the target opportunity as well there. So Aaron Jones, pretty solid matchup this week. And then on Brown's side of the ball, he's got Najee Harris. Dude, talk about busts, man. Like in that tweet I sent, points per game, he's the obvious like round one bust of the fantasy. I want to do, maybe we can do it one episode where we kind of do like a redraft where we just look at the board and be like, all right, we would draft like these players here. Like this is like what the ADP should have looked like. I feel like that would be kind of cool. I feel like Najee Harris isn't going to like maybe end of third round, maybe beginning of middle of second, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm tweaking, but he's been a bust this year, man. That workhorse role is like just long forgotten. He hasn't broke 20 touch barrier all season, which is ridiculous because at least if you banked on Najee being like, all right, I'm going to draft him this high, you're at least, even though the O-line is terrible, you were like, bet, I'm going to get like 20, 25. Yeah, I'm going to get 25 touches a game. I'm going to get these targets. And no matter, even if he does not have good numbers at all, like volume alone, I should be able to do something, but it's just not happening whatsoever for him. Kenny Pickett, it's just weird. It's just not a solid foundation for Najee to really excel with the line. And the defense is abysmal, which makes the game script not healthy at all. They did just activate TJ Watt off of, I forgot what it's called when you have 21 days to come back from IR.
Yeah.
But they just activated him off that, so maybe that'll boost the defense there. And then the matchup is just tough, man. When you play Philadelphia and they rank second versus the rush, it's just not an ideal spot for Najee here. So I definitely got to give at that RB1 slot. I'm definitely going to give Ray the advantage there with Aaron Jones. And then going over to Ray's true identity, Mr. JT, do you love me? JT, we got kids in chat asking, is this the biggest bust in like forever in the first round position? I definitely think that's a reach. Ray's reaction, like when you responded to it, like non-biased aside, I thought it was like perfect. Like, I don't think we need to freak out. He's averaging like 15 points a game. Nothing too crazy, but I don't think it's where we call him like a really, really crazy bust. But yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Sam Ehlinger this week under center. I don't know if is he a dump off guy? Like, do you have any film like info on him?
I mean, he's kind of like he wasn't too crazy in college. He's a decently accurate thrower. He's really mobile. So, I mean, if he can kind of just figure out how the NFL works, kind of slow it down, and kind of just pick out where to maybe even. I don't think we're gonna run too much RPO. We haven't really had too many running quarterbacks, but I mean, in general, we'll see what happens. He's not too much of a dump off guy, but we'll see what happens. I mean, we go up against the Commanders, so.
I mean, if you're a quarterback who is sitting behind Carson Wentz in your rookie year, and then your team goes out and trades for Matt Ryan, and you sit behind Matt Ryan for half the year, I don't have much trust in you, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they must have seen some like pretty shaky things in camp, but you never know. He might have grown up in the middle of the season. But I did write down that I have a feeling that with him being a young QB, they might try to lean on the run really heavily with JT, which is going to help out his volume a lot there, which is pretty good. And then the matchup's not the best. Like Aaron Jones was kind of getting bottled up, but he lived in dump off heaven and he got those like easy touchdowns, which is going to really boost him there. So I have him as like a really solid high-end RB1 this week just because the floor is really, really, really good. And then the ceiling is also really good because of the dump offs. Maybe because Sam Ehlinger targets him if like the pocket collapses and he has to do some quick decision making there. So overall, Raisin, like you're in a great spot, bro, with your running backs this week. I think the matchups are solid. And volume alone, you're in a really prime spot this week to make a statement with those guys. And then moving over to Browns RB2, we got Kenneth Walker. I mean, talk about a league winner, and then talk about Brown having two polar opposites at the RB position. He has Najee Harris, who's been an absolute huge bust. He just looks mids. His team is mids. And then we've got Seattle, Kenneth Walker. He's just taken an absolute stranglehold over the backfield. He looks amazing. I was so adamant on the Dolphins drafting him. He was my Heisman pick last year in college. I just thought he was an amazing player. And it's proving it right now, man. He's just a clear-cut RB1. The ceiling is disgusting right now, and the floor is just as good. All it takes sometimes is like an injury happening, and then those rookie RBs are going to pop off. Penny was doing his thing. Like, don't get me wrong, he was not bad, but Kenneth Walker just really takes his offense to a different level. And it's crazy to me that how wrong sometimes scouts can be, because Michigan State didn't involve Kenneth Walker in dump offs a lot. Granted, that's not really like a scheme that a lot of college offenses take. there's people like Clemson, like ETN, they thrived on those dump offs for the running back. That's why he was really coveted in the draft. But a lot of people criticize Kenneth Walker's ability to like catch the ball and move in space and like these 2-minute offenses and stuff like that. But obviously he's able to shut everybody up because he can do both sides of the ball like really, really well. And yeah, man, he's a smash spot. I tried to get him from Brown for like 3 weeks before Penny got hurt, and he was always like, nah, which really sucks for me. But yeah, I think that Kenneth Walker's a really, really good play this week. I have him as a top like 6 play, but I'm still going to give the advantage to JT just because the volume and stuff like that. I like to play it safe when I'm picking stuff. I like to do opportunity volume, and I just think he's going to be like force fed, maybe like 30-ish touches. But we'll see what happens there. And in the overall RB department, I got to give the advantage to Ray here. Like I said, that's your identity, that's your core, and I just think it's going to be a solid game. And then going over to the wide receiver position here, we got Ray, who has Deebo Samuel, Chris Godwin, and Cortland Sutton. And then Brown has T. Higgins, Jacoby Myers, and Drake London. Obviously, we just saw Chris Godwin play in that Thursday night game. To me, it's kind of frustrating watching him play a little bit because I just feel like Godwin has a chance every single game to get over 20 points because Brady loves the slot. It's just weird how these games are playing out. The game scripts are kind of just falling apart there. Ray, how have you been feeling about Godwin like recently?
I mean, he's been pretty solid. He's going to get, double digits every single week. The kind of trend, you kind of alluded to it just now. The beginning of the games, it seems like he's somewhat of a workhorse. Like, it'll be like the first 2 or 3 drives, he'll have like 4 catches for like 40 yards, 8 points, throughout the first quarter already. And then things kind of just died down. So, I mean, of course, I would hope and I would wish for more upside, but I can't necessarily be mad at necessarily, 13 and a half points because that's basically more or less what I am looking for, right, for my wide receiver 2. But
Sure.
I mean, yeah, I'm definitely hoping for a touchdown. He still hasn't scored one this year, so hopefully.
Really? I didn't know. Oh, yeah, he did get tackled out like the 1 yard line. I remember when I picked him for my Menta of the week. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's been really weird for Chris Godwin this year. Literally, you put it right, nail on the head. In the first like 2 drives, they targeted him like 4 times. I'm like, all right, this might be like a really good Chris Godwin game. And then like it kind of just tapers off. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because we did see him play already. And then so starting off with Ray's wide receiver 1, we got a huge question mark here with Deebo Samuel, man. As Kranz brought up in the injury report, this hamstring injury is not ideal. We've gone over it numerous times this year because of Keenan Allen. It's just not an ideal injury for the wide receiver position. It gets kind of sketchy there. And granted, we saw him pop off versus LA. So maybe if he plays, like you're going to feel confident in him. Obviously, if he's active, you're going to be starting him. But I would temper expectations this week. It's kind of nasty, man. I don't know. And then on Brown's side of the ball, his wide receiver 1 is T. Higgins. Obviously, he just hit stratosphere type of play with Jamar Chase being out. T. Higgins was already just looking really, really solid and doing exactly. He's one of those players that has been so true to his ADP. Everybody drafted him as that wide receiver 2 with consistent wide receiver 1 upside. And he's been able to do that week in and week out. And even last week, he kind of took that backseat in the wide receiver 3 position to Boyd, and he was still able to put up 5 catches for 93 yards. Which to me is like really, really good. That's all you can ask for. So I don't know how the coverages are going to work now. So Cran, do you think T. Higgins, he's for sure going to be like that locked up guy from the best corner on the team?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, T. Higgins is that outside X guy, and he benefited from the fact of Jamar being able to take away 99% of the cornerback ones. And we obviously saw Jamar kind of struggle in the beginning of the year and T kind of popping out a little bit. But T. Higgins has the ability, and we've seen it in the past, T. Higgins has the ability to beat cornerback 1s and be a true wide receiver 1X guy. So I'm not really worried about him, especially in a matchup versus, Cleveland,
Yeah, so this one's kind of tough for me just because I love Deebo Samuel. I'm definitely like a stan of his. But for sure, I'm going to have to side with T. Higgins having the advantage here at that wide receiver 1 position, just because the target share alone, that's going to open up for these guys. Even if he's not as consistent with catching the ball, maybe because he has harder coverages on him, the defense focuses more, he's going to at least get 4 to 5 more targets a game, I'm assuming, which is all you can really ask for. So Brown's in a really good department there. Once again, another player I was constantly trying to trade Brown for, and he's just one of those guys, he just doesn't budge sometimes. So nothing you could do there. And then we went over your wide receiver 2, Chris Godwin. He ended the game with 13.5 points. 6 catches, 11 targets, dude. His targets are incredible. He had 12, 13, and 11 targets. That is elite.
Wide receiver 1 target share on Godwin.
Yeah, target share is incredible there, and that's why you drafted him. But it's just the numbers aren't really producing as what we want it to be for him to be like a pop-off. But it's not terrible. And then on Brown's wide receiver 2 right now, he's got Jacoby Myers in there. The Patriots did announce that Mac Jones is for sure going to be the starter now, which is a positive for Jacoby, because we know that they kind of have a little bit of repetition and some chemistry there. He likes to feed him the ball a lot. So Jacoby Myers, and he also scored a touchdown last week. He has 2 touchdowns in the first 4 weeks this year, whereas in his first 3 seasons of his career, he had 0 touchdowns. And then last year he had 2 touchdowns all season. So he's finally starting to get a nick for finding the end zone, which is solid. Granted, Jacoby, he plays in the slot, right?
I'm not. Yeah, because Devontae Parker is their ex receiver.
Yes. Yeah. So he won't. I don't think he'll be seeing a lot of Sauce Gardner this week. I think DVP will probably see the bulk of that, which means that it's not going to be a terrible matchup. He's more of a volume play. I just think he's has a very low ceiling most weeks, but his floor isn't that bad. It's exactly what you want from a wide receiver 3 maybe, but he hasn't been in his wide receiver 2 position this week. However, with seeing Chris Godwin's numbers, I'd rather take the risk and say that I'm going to give the advantage to Jacoby Myers in this, because I think he could easily get 13.5 points in any given week. I think any wide receiver can, and I think they can do more than that. So I'm for sure going to give Jacoby Myers the advantage there on this one. And then overall, let's go to the wide receiver 3 position here. We've got Courtland Sutton versus Drake London. Courtland Sutton, man, Broncos Nation, let's ride is about the only positive memory we have from this Broncos team so far this year. It's the only good thing we've been able to think of. He's honestly been non-existent the last 2 games. When I was looking at the box score, he had 3 and 5 points in back-to-back matchups, which is just absolutely heinous. Ray, I know you are criticizing yourself for making those changes you made last week, but that was one of them that you kind of hit right on. Zay Jones was able to get 10 or 11 points. I don't remember exactly, but you hit that right on the head with the backup quarterback there, and then the defense that he was facing. It was a solid bench by you. I just don't know, man. I still think that Russ playing this week, I know the media, he's milking it as hard as hell. I just don't think it's a solid play this week. The hamstring is still kind of sketchy to me. He doesn't have that rollout ability. It just hurts the whole offense when he's not 100%. And I don't like Courtland Sutton again this week. I think that with them having the bye week, it would probably be smarter to bench Russ. But yeah, I don't know, man. Ray, how have you been feeling about Courtland Sutton so far? I want to hear your thoughts on him.
I mean, I'm a really big fan. He's a smart dude. I like him. In regards to how he plays, he's a big go up and get him receiver, and he's a pretty smart dude off the field as well. He's been a really solid wide receiver 2 for most of the season. Past 2 weeks been kind of mocky, right? It's been kind of nasty for the boy, but I mean, he has a really good matchup this week. I think Jacksonville is a top 8 matchup in fantasy points given a wide receiver, so I think they should be, in a spot for, if I can get my 10 to 15 points out of Courtland, I'm happy. Hopefully Russ can get off his little Broncos Nation high horse and get something done over there in London. I mean, hopefully they go ahead and out there and show out. But I mean, at this point, he's kind of how I felt about Terry McLaurin, or really how I feel about Terry most weeks. Same thing I feel about him. I'm always stuck in a position to where the talent of my wide receivers is top tier elite, but there's always just a question with their quarterbacks, right?
That's a perfect pairing. It's funny that you have them both on your team. I feel like Courtland Sutton and Terry are that perfect tier receiver that you feel all right, I got to start them, but damn, it hurts me to start. And I feel right below that tier, so if they're here, I feel would be my receivers, where it's Cooks and DJ Moore, right below them, where it's damn, the names are all right. But like, I feel even worse about starting them compared to you. So that's pretty interesting there. And like you said, the matchup is good. Maybe if Judy gets traded, it's a huge benefit. We'll see what happens there. So yeah, that's Cortland Sutton this week. And then over to Brown's side of the ball, we've got Drake London. There's honestly nothing I can say about this Atlanta passing offense. I saw a belligerent stat, and they are averaging the same number of passes per games as teams were averaging in 1941. It's absolutely, it makes no sense.
You draft Kyle Pitts, who's one of the greatest pass-catching tight ends of all time, and then you draft Drake London, the first receiver off the board in the draft last year, and then you throw the ball like 4 times combined to both of them.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. On top of that, in a game like last week, all right, last week's the perfect scenario where like bet Kyle Pitts, Drake London, let's feed these kids the ball. They're down by 2 touchdowns almost the entire game. Nah, they came out and they ran the ball in the second half more times than they did in the first. So it's just like, I don't understand what's going on in Atlanta there. What's sickening to me is that the winner of the Carolina-Atlanta game this week will have first place of NFC South, which is disgusting to me. That's just nasty. That's a red card right there. So yeah, really nothing I can say about Drake London. I don't really like him I loved him in the beginning of the season. Me and you, Crans, we were so high on him. It's just great.
His target share is still belligerent, but
yeah. The target share is still there, but I just don't know.
When your target share is the target share of 15 passes, like.
It's just, I don't know, man. I feel really bad for him. It's going to be, the matchup's not terrible. Maybe it'll get a little wonky because, like I said, they're fighting for that first spot in the division. And don't get me wrong, NFL coaches, they hear talk. So they're going to hear talks about like, bro, why are you guys running the ball so much? Like, you guys are down. You got to do something, you know? And if they don't have faith in Mariota, dude, throw in the rookie. Like, Mariota's not bad. Don't get me wrong. They're winning games that they shouldn't be winning, and they're competing in all games. But like, yo, throw in Desmond Ridder if you need to like throw some passes and you're afraid of Mariota throwing it. So in this wide receiver 3 position, I'm going to have to give the matchup advantage to Ray here. And then on the tight end side of the ball, we've got TJ Hawkinson on Ray's side versus Greg Dulcich on Brown's side of the ball. Right off the bat, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. I'm giving them the advantage here to Hawkinson. He plays Miami. We've seen Pat Freiermuth had a really great game last week versus us. Miami's just really, really banged up in that secondary department. The linebackers aren't the best for guarding tight ends in space because we have so much other stuff to worry about. I feel like with tight ends, we kind of just are like, all right, that's a position we're going to kind of let you eat at or like have some open passes with because we have so much to worry about at the cornerback position. Yeah. And it's so vital for us to apply pressure and like kind of stop the run to have like an effective game plan. So I kind of just feel like we chalk up the tight end position most times. And with this being the highest over under of the week, I got to give it to him. Greg Dulcich, I don't know, man. He's been not bad the last 2 weeks, but I just think Brown was kind of just he was like a fuck it play because he has Kelsey on bye, obviously, which hurts Brown here. But yeah, I'm definitely just going to have to give the advantage to Ray on this side of the ball. And then transferring over to the flex position, obviously Brown's flex has played. He had Gus Edwards in there. He didn't look bad. He was efficient. He had 11 carries for 65 yards, but he did suffer a hamstring injury, which is just really unfortunate. That carousel of running backs in Baltimore is just going to keep going. And then on Ray's side of the ball, you have Terry McLaurin. Ray, how are you feeling about this matchup versus your own Colts?
I mean, he's going up against former Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore. And I mean, on paper, we all know my boys, the offense is anemic. It's terrible. It's dirty, right? It's dog water. But our defense is elite. And I think we only allow like 16 points a game, right, to defenses. And I mean, in general, we've always been pretty decent against the pass. I think Terry is going to get his because, as you actually, Rosie, alluded to last week, is that I think Taylor Heineke actually treats Terry McLaurin as a wide receiver 1, right?
100%.
So as opposed to beforehand with Carson Wentz, where he was just dumping off to Carson Wentz, or sorry, not to Carson Wentz, to Curtis Samuel and to maybe even, Jahan Dotson when he was healthy. Now I can go ahead and worry about Heineke actually getting him the ball, at least targeting him. I just got to make sure that it's actually on target, right?
Yeah, fantasy is just so weird because like you're like, oh, bet they got Carson Wentz. Maybe that's a boost for Terry, like for the beginning of the season. And then that injury happens and you're like, even more confident because that chemistry that Taylor has with him is just like, all right, bet, like I can bank on that, which is why I was like shocked you didn't start him last week. I really thought you were going to fall back on that. But in this flex position, for sure, got to give the advantage to Ray here. So overall, I'm giving Ray the advantage here in this matchup, and I'm pretty confident you guys are both going to say the same thing. I kind of try to ask you questions like mid matchup so that you don't have to break down too much after I give my decision. But yeah, I'm siding with Ray in this one.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you know me. Every week, each and every single week, I'm gonna choose myself to win. I think I have pretty good matchups. The projections look pretty good. I just gotta hope that I don't get caught by like a Kenneth Walker, 50 spot. But I think I'm in a pretty good position to take that dub there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and also give Ray the dub because he's got the god at quarterback, in Tua Tagovailoa, and my only sketch is that if Deebo Samuel plays, you are going to have an absolute sweater for your upper decky. So you're gonna have to hope that Deebo Samuel plays, or if not, just kind of sweat out that flex position and hope you can get more than 6.5 to beat out Gus Edwards. So
facts. All right, so I'm glad we could all agree on that one. That seems kind of obvious there. Ray, you're in a must-win spot, so this is a big game for you. Started off right with Gus Edwards getting hurt, so I'm sure you're feeling pretty confident about that. And then for these last two matchups, we planned on having a guest. He couldn't make it this week. Vega, as we said, he'll be on next week. So we're kind of just going to freestyle these last two matchups here. We don't have super in-depth breakdowns of the matchups and stuff like that, but we can kind of just like kick it and just chat it up. I think the first one we can tackle yours, Crans. You are 3-4 this week, and you are going up against Mr. Ragtag Skull and Bones Dan, who is 2-5. So I know Daniel's for sure. As a kid who's always been in the muck, like fighting for that playoff spot, I know he's in an uncomfortable position right now because, as we know, Daniel's always somebody who makes the playoffs and usually makes a deep run there. So, what are your first impressions on your matchup this week? How are you feeling going into it?
It's funny because Dan kind of said it in the chat, right? And he was saying how our matchup is like super voodoo. We got Kirk, and he has Kirk. I have J Jeff. He's got Tyreek Hill. I got Jalen Waddle. Like, it's kind of just like that super voodoo. Like, is Tyreek going to go off? Is Jalen Waddle going to go off? Are they both going to go off? Like, is Kirk Cousins only going to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson and Jefferson is going to nuke, or is he going to throw it to Thielen? Like, one thing is that I will say Alan Lazard going out kind of gives me a little sigh of relief because he has been very dangerous the past couple of weeks. And top projected scorer of the week for me. My team's on the up and up. We saw a little coming out party for D-Hop. I think that offense is going to get a little bit more efficient. Kyler and Kirk are playing against each other, which is interesting. So who gets the better of that quarterback matchup? I like the upside of Kyler more than the upside of Kirk Cousins. I'll tell you that much. If Kirk Cousins goes crazy, all I know is that Justin Jefferson is going crazy. So it's like Ray said, like, I'll take a nuke from J Jeff if that means Kirk Cousins gets a couple touchdowns. Like,
to me, the danger in having a quarterback and then your opponent having the opponent opposite wide receiver one is that, say Kirk, like Dalvin, rushes in all the touchdowns, but all to get to that red zone, JJF is just bombing and nuking. It's going to absolutely wreck Daniel's chances of like
that PPR is crazy.
Yeah, and the PPR thing, it's really tough. The one question I will ask you is, how do you feel about you being maybe the unlucky victim of playing Tony Pollard this week?
I'll be honest. It sucks for sure if I do have to play Tony Pollard in his breakout week, but Dan has to play Travis Etienne in his breakout week.
Taco sit.
In a matchup where I think Denver has just struggled. I've been on the good side of London games so far. J Jeff popped off against Seidenberg when I played him in London. He had that touchdown at the end of the game that really solidified his 30-plus point game, and now Etienne is fully unleashed with just Jamal Agnew behind him in a defense that on paper is really, really good, but very much good against the pass. So If ETN can stay efficient, which he's looked very, very explosive, very efficient. The Jaguars offense is really solid. I like ETN at my running back like 1-2 position. And we talked about it before the podcast. If Josh Jacobs is all systems go, like he's getting that start over Ramondre, and it's just Josh Jacobs season. Like Josh Jacobs is a super duty guy. So I'm not really worried. Christian McCaffrey is Christian McCaffrey, but he's still getting up to speed, and it is that tough Rams matchup. So, maybe we'll see him have, 10 points. Like, I think that my running backs can keep up with his running backs and like
100%.
run it. Like at the end of the day, my strong suit is my wide receivers. So, as long as I have a pop out, and my wide receivers have some really, really solid matchups. I mean, Jeff, like he plays Byron Murphy, but like at Arizona through the air is not good. And Justin Jefferson is a Menta. And then AJ Brown, Pittsburgh has been, I said it, Pittsburgh has been solid against wide receivers the past couple of weeks, but at the end of the day, they've been a poor secondary. And when you're going up against the best team in the league, quote unquote, like, AJ Brown's going to do his thing. And then you just got to deal with Jalen Waddle and CeeDee Lamb at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not too worried. Like, I think Tony Pollard is going to have a good game, but like every week I've gone into my matchup and like, I think people are going to do, like, you guys know how I think about it. Like every week I'm like, this is a sweat. Like, even if it looks like the projections are good for me and I like can be confident in it, like I'm always thinking it's going to be a sweat. So, I mean, hopefully at the end of the 1 o'clocks, like, I'm like, okay, I popped,
Yeah. So, Ray, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give it a pretty easy win to Crayons. But before I actually hopped on the pod, and I was kind of late, right? I was eating a little late dinner. At first, earlier in the day, I thought it was gonna be pretty close, especially because CMC, you got Tony Pollard, who's gonna get that full opportunity and the full work in that backfield for Dallas this week. But then when I just look at Crayons' team, man, he that's my brother, right? That's my blood brother for real. It's also my number one op. Man, his team is just too solid, man. I mean, even CeeDee Lamb with Dak having a terrible first game back, I'm pretty sure he was able to get about 10 points. Waddle, even on an game last week, even still had his double digits, and I think they're going nuke. The Dolphins are just trashing that entire defense, right? Justin Jefferson, enough said, and then AJ Brown, another enough said type of dude against a porous. I mean, albeit they have been really stingy lately, as we were kind of just talking about not too long ago. But yeah, in general, Dan, it's tough for you. I know you got some players who can go off for that 30-40 spot, but Crayons' team right now, just on paper, just looks really scary. I wouldn't want to play that guy in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I will say the thing that scares me is looking at Dan's team is McCaffrey, Pollard, Tyreek, right?
Mhm.
Like that's what scares me. But McCaffrey on paper, tougher matchup. Tyreek Hill is matchup proof, but he does face a solid cornerback in Detroit for
Jeff Okudah, I think.
Jeff Okudah. Which, who knows? Maybe that opens the floor for Jalen Waddle. Tua absolutely loves Jalen Waddle. Waddle is his favorite receiver. Currently, we've seen Tua and Tyreek kind of not be on the same page a little bit sometimes. So, and then Tony Pollard, like all I have to do is avoid a 30-pluser. Like if he has 20, 25, like it sucks. But after those players, my team is so much more, like so much deeper, that I think I'll get more points across the board, and Dan will have to really, really hope for a pop from one random person. And like with Lazard going out, like it's, the players on his bench he's going to be sweating. Who do I play in that flex? Like.
Yeah. What did I rank you preseason as team 2?
2, yeah.
Yeah. And to me, it's like, it's proving it, bro. Just staring at your lineup. You hit the jackpot on the kind of not RB0, but like just waiting on running backs and slamming the wide receiver position. Because obviously ETN is now broken free with no J-Rob there. And then Josh Jacobs has been
Josh Jacobs on bench is annoying. That's insane.
Yeah, he's hit like 30 plus 3 weeks in a row. I'm confident he's going to put him in for Ramondre. And then Ramondre is that like decent RB2, what we knew he was going to be. Ray thinks you stole him from him. But yeah, it's just your team's pop, and I think that these like, I think you have the best chance of like competing with the Vega week in and week out. So yeah, man, I think you're going to make a run and you're going to be annoying in the playoffs. If I make playoffs, I do not want to see you until championship if that would be possible, because those receivers are just nasty, man. So it looks like we're all going to give you the dub on this one in a fairly easy contest versus Daniel, sending him maybe to 2-6. So I don't know, man. We'll see how that goes.
So.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan, for the sake of you, but like, man, I do not. First of all, I don't want to be. I'm still like, I'm in 6th place, but I do not want to be on Schwep body issue. I think I've kind of escaped that. My team is on the upwards trend, but like, I don't want to get unlucky and hit that. And 2, like, I gotta make offs, man. I'm trying to win a bowl. Fucking this league is annoying. That ring escapes me and Ray every single year. Like, I'm trying to win, man.
It's an interesting year because how we did it full PPR and 3 wide receiver, like the rule that I kind of wanted us to enforce is that it makes the playing field even to where nobody's comfortable. And you took that risk and like went out on that limb on this strategy, and it might pay off for you, and it might be the reason you win a bowl this year. You never know.
I remember literally we were drafting, and I literally drafted Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and then AJ Brown, right? And Ray, it came around to the next pick, and Ray was like, see, this is why I'm smart, right? Like, you're not taking Jalen Waddle. And what do? Boom, four wide receivers straight in a row. Jalen Waddle.
At least he's able to admit it. We still in flow.
And then what happens? Ray sits there and he thinks he uses his entire 2 minutes for that pick because he was thinking the whole time, I'm getting Jalen Waddle. And that's when he took Terry McLaurin in that range where he was like, I can take Terry McLaurin, but I'm not comfortable because of the quarterback position. And then, like, I was just able to take. I knew he wasn't going running back. Yeah, that I just took ETN for free. Yeah. Like, I didn't have to take ETN because I knew Ray wasn't going to take a running back. He needed a wide receiver in a 3 wide receiver league. So then, boom, I get ETN a round later for free. So it's like,
yeah, man. So I don't know. I have you right now. It's like I don't know, man. I think you have a really good shot to go all the way this year with.
I think V is really, really good too. But losing Mike Williams is going to be tough for him, man. He 100%. Has to at least make the playoffs, you know?
Yeah. He's got a road to climb up to where, to me, I feel like you don't have one as much. But Zvisim is clicking on all cylinders. I just think I like your crazy wide receivers over his Kamara, Fournette, Dalvin by like a significant amount. And I know you're heavy on Fournette and like you really like Kamara. I just think your wide receivers are just like it kind of like
I feel similar. Yeah, go ahead.
Hopping on Olave is, I mean, look, it's not the upside. I'm not going to sit here and get disrespectful, right? Kansas receivers upside wise is crazy. Hopping Olave, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Hopping Olave is really, really good, but I was thinking about it. If I were to go back in time and do the draft again, my strategy would 100% stay exactly the same in having a mental wide receiver core and trying to hit on running backs versus having a mental running back core and trying to hit on wide receivers. Yeah. Because who knows? Olave's popping off and he's a rookie and he's really good, but have teams really dove into him and figured out, okay, how can we stop this guy? Like Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, all these players have been in the league for 4 years, and we know every single week they're going to go crazy. We know AJ Brown's going to beat man coverage 90% of the time. Like Jalen Waddle has Tyreek Hill pulling away all of the danger away from him. You know, it's like that PPR mental, especially with that 3rd wide receiver added, is just so crazy. I was like, I'm going wide receiver. I didn't think I was going to go 4 wide receivers. But I just felt in my heart that I wanted A.J. Brown, so I kind of reached on A.J. Brown. Thankfully, I did because I would have taken Javonte Williams otherwise. But
to me, even though you say, like, yeah, I took the risk, you kind of knew those receivers were going to fall to you. So it was kind of you just making that decision, all right, am I going to do this or am I not? And
I didn't know Seidy was going to fall to me. But
yeah, that's true.
Doing that was like – and I was worried about it at the beginning of the year because of all the fuck shit that happened with his 11 targets, 1 catch, and then Dak getting injured. But Cooper Rush was, whatever. So yeah, it was crazy, man.
For sure. So obviously we have you sweeping that one there versus Dan. And then going over to the last matchup of the week, we've got Schwepberg, Everybody Hurts, who is 4-3 versus King Henry's Chubb, Mr. Yul Stark, who's also 4-3. We do have a little preview of everything that's happened so far. Seidenberg unfortunately started Rashad Bateman, who did injure his foot. It looks like he re-aggravated that injury. So he has a nice little goose egg on his roster this week. And then on Kyle's side of the ball, he had a 20 piece from Mike Evans. 6 for 11, 123 yards, which is really solid. And then the Bucks D got 5 points, which is not the best, but gives us a little glimpse into what it was projected to be a close matchup, kind of. But now, I don't know, man. I just think that Kyle's going to run away with this one now.
Bro, with a goose egg, especially in spot where it's like your flex is obviously the spot where you're not expecting to get as many points as any other positions, but it's one where you need those extra points just to like edge you out if it's a close matchup. Like, dude, getting a 0 there is so rough. Like, it sucks. Like, I don't know, like, especially with Mike Evans getting 20, it's like, fuck, now I need Michael Pittman to get 20 to match that. If he doesn't, like, I'm so fucked.
Yeah, what's crazy here, I'm actually looking, it's still really close. Kyle only has it says 1 point projection.
How is that even possible? That's mental.
And the first thing that I'm looking at this crazy as hell is like Michael Carter projected 15 points, and I'm like, bro, I get it, but like, kid, you're bugging. Like, you feel me? Like J-Rob, I actually remember J-Rob, or it's not J-Rob. Did he go to the Jets?
Yeah,
I think it is the Jets, right? Yeah. So he was actually talking about his injury, and he was talking about how he wasn't necessarily injured the last week, and that Doug Peterson was kind of bugging out, right?
Yeah, he got heated.
Yeah, so like, and I'm over here looking at Michael Carter projected 15 points, and I'm like, bro, like I've seen legit, let's say RBBC splits and then workhorse level splits with Michael Carter, and this is actually kind of one of the issues I was going to allude to with Tony Pollard, right? I forgot who in our league has him. We just went over him. My fault. And it's that a lot of these scat back running backs, they kind of perform better when they're in an RBBC.
Yeah.
Sometimes when they get that work, maybe there's a reason why they're not going ahead and getting those 20, 25 touches, right? And I think with Michael Carter, I think 15 points is a little bit bugging, honestly, on Sleeper App's part.
Yeah, I think that Sleeper is juicing that up like a lot. Granted, because maybe they think J-Rob's not going to be like touching the ball a lot, but we saw CMC right away. He got traded on like a Friday or something, and he was involved in the offense right away on Sunday. They traded him early in the week, so he has time to get the playbook, learn some plays, like call out some plays for him, learn some formations, all that stuff, to where I think that it's going to be more of a split than everybody thinks it is. I know Michael Carter was like the number one waiver ad last week type shit because of that, and then J-Rob obviously got traded there. But yeah, man, I don't know. I feel like Seidenberg's team is just really, really sketchy. I think he's going to, in the upcoming weeks, I think Zvi is going to rise and Kranz is going to rise in ranking significantly. And Seidenberg's going to drop to that lower tier a little bit. You just got question marks like Mixon and Hurts are really his anchors. But then after that, like Pittman isn't doing what he thought he was going to do. He's got Lockett and Ayuk in there who are just really shaky all around. And then Pitts is an absolute bust. So if you drafted Pitts, like I guarantee you if there's a correlation in fantasy this year of teams who drafted Pitts and like struggling, like not an elite team, like not in a 100%. Playoff position, like it just has to be true because of the capital that was spent on him. I mean, he has, and he just lost Jamar. I forgot about that. So he's down bad right now.
Yeah, and we were just talking about boosted up projections. Like, how is Ayuk projected to get less than Tyler Lockett? Tyler Lockett, I feel like they project him 15 points because he either has 30 or he has 8 or 10. Like, and they just throw him right in the middle because they have no idea. Like, Brandon Ayuk has been very solid the past couple of weeks now that he's kind of got on the same page as Jimmy G. He's had 11 targets in the past 2 games that he's turned into 8 and 7 catches respectively. He's got in the end zone. He actually had 83 and 82 yards, like literally 1 yard apart. But like in a game where the defense is going to be all about that defensive line and kind of getting the ball out quick, like I don't know. I think we see Ayuk and Debo, especially if Debo's out, but Ayuk and Debo kind of across the middle of the field on those quick slants, maybe like zone beater type plays. Like I think Ayuk is more of I project him to have more than Tyler Lockett, honestly, especially we didn't see the Jaguars wide receivers do much last week versus the Giants. And like, I mean, losing Jamar is just absurd, man. Like he's down bad, and he was just about to trade away Pittman. Like, kid.
Yeah, now he's chalked. I don't know, man. And then on Kyle's side of the ball, he definitely is taking, like, I can see it in his lineup. He's kind of taking a hit with losing DK. His team doesn't look as scary as it once was.
And
on top of that,
too.
yeah, and then MT's hurt, and then Mahomes is on bye, so his team looks like a little bit more human-like.
Rodgers against
Rodgers versus Buffalo
in a spot.
No, yeah, for sure. Like
Jalen Hurts might actually score 20 to 25 more than Rodgers this week, so that could leverage that little zero spot that's
like Rodgers, even though he's been really, really bad, this is the 1 week. Even though the matchup is bad, it's just sometimes fantasy, it doesn't matter because they're going to have to throw the ball like 50, 60 times to maybe even have a shot.
And he'll just get in the zone. Yeah,
literally. So, yeah, man, it's going to be, I think it's fairly easy, just going to be Kyle's W here. And it sounds like both of you guys agree on that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry.
Actually, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, Derrick Henry versus Houston, like, he's going to fucking munch them. Chubb is a certified autos banger smash, like, every week. Like, his team is just his running backs. And like we were saying before the pod, like, he has those, like, sneaky deep wide receivers, like Pickens, Kirk, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he just picked up Robert Woods, who by all means is not a great player, but like this year in fantasy, but I mean, at your flex, like, he could do the job, you know?
Yeah, he can do something. I was debating picking him up, but I just never did because I had Donta. But he's all right. Like, he's been mentioned in a couple waiver wire articles.
He gets 10, like.
Yeah, I mean, that's all sometimes you could ask for in a 3 wide receiver plus a flex. If your team is not like nuclear, like your receiving core is there. But yeah, so it sounds like we all have. We're agreeing on all the matchups this week. We all picked Svi to beat me. We all picked Kranz to beat Dan. We all picked Vega to beat Sevilla, correct? The Ray thing, we picked all Ray, and then we all picked Kyle. So we literally agreed on everything this week. And this is like the 1 week I'm kind of confident. The one toss-up for me, I feel like, is maybe me and Zvi's game could be a little closer after we broke down like my matchups and stuff. But I don't know. Across the board, it sounds like we're fairly confident in that. So we're definitely going to hit on a couple, I think. So that really wraps up the Schwep matchups this week. And then we're going to get into my favorite segment of the show. And then we're going to do some locks. And then we're just going to wrap it up. With that being said, let's get into it. This is our portion of the show, our mentas of the week. Do any of you guys want to start with yours, or do you guys want me to start with mine?
I'll go ahead and start with mine. Mine is pretty. I think you guys know my rookie sensation. It's Chris Olave, the New Orleans Saints. Honestly, man, he's turned into one of my favorite players in the league. He's just too nasty, right? He goes up against the Raiders again. Like I said beforehand, he's going up against Rock Ya-Sin. I know all about the kid. He's pretty solid in regards to his physicality as a corner, but he's going up in Chris Olave, who is an elite route runner. Kind of reminds me of like a young Diggs. I know Kranz was a big fan early in his career when he was more of a route running slot menta, right? Second highest over under, like I told you guys also before, 49.5 points. So there will be a lot of points here in that game. So it's going to be a lot of passing. I think MT is probably going to be out this week again. So it's going to be Kamara, Olave, Kamara, of course. Rookie of the Year campaign. I think it's going to be him versus Dameon Pierce, and I know a lot of you guys are thinking that Dameon Pierce guy is going to go ahead and win it. And I know a lot. I know we're a very competitive group here, so I definitely am going ahead and hoping Chris Olave kind of does his thing this week. I have him projected for 10 catches, 120 yards, and 2 of them tutty things.
Damn, that's fucking awful for me. Yeah, I'm not. I think Rookie of the Year. I think it's going to be Kenneth Walker. I think he's going to take a stranglehold of that shit because he just looks like a monster to me. But
His
I mean,
yeah, I ain't gonna hold you.
Come on, off. But yeah, that's not ideal for me. Unfortunately, I have to face Olave this week. With that being said, I'll give you guys my Menta of the week, and he is on a little hint throughout the show. He is a Miami Dolphin. This man is on Austin Kranz's team. I got to go with my boy Jalen Waddle. He's going to be my Menta of the week this week. With Tua, he's averaging at least like 21.5 points per game, which is just disgusting. Like Kranz said, Tua absolutely loves this kid, and he's the wide receiver 1 with Tua there. And they throw the ball enough to where he can support Reek and Waddle, so it hasn't hurt him at all. And back-to-back games, he's had his yards per catch is 20 plus yards. So these long passes, like these money passes in fantasy that we're looking for, is exactly what Waddle's been getting, and it's just that bread and butter for him. He's just so smooth, and it's weird. Whenever I watch him play, it's like the secondary, like, I don't know. They obviously respect him, but they give this man so much space to make his cuts. Like, they don't give him any contact on the line, nothing like that. I guess they're too worried about Reek. I don't know. But Waddle always has like just free game to like have a field day, honestly. It just is up to the offensive line to give us that time to develop those routes. But like I said, he's averaged 20 yards per catch in last 2 games per target, which is just disgusting to me. And then Detroit is a bottom 5 offense versus the pass. We've seen them. They've been in shootout games all year. They made Lockett and Metcalf look nuclear with Geno Smith at the helm. And it's the highest over under this week at 51.5. So I just think this is going to be a fantasy gold mine for players maybe on both sides of the ball here, but specifically the Dolphins. As I said earlier, I just have into his matchup, like when I was talking about Rays, I just think they're going to really, really get it going here. And I think Jalen Waddle is going to have a 35 plus point game, and I just have him as my mentor of the week, man. And I hope it comes true so that the Finns can get a dub as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing that. Yeah, I mean, Jalen Waddle, it seems like teams really, really respect him and Tyreek's speed. They don't want to do any press at the line because if they get a clean release, they're gone every single time. And Tua is accurate enough. People say he doesn't have the arm, but he's accurate enough to hit them in stride, and they can go to the house. We saw it on that 4th and 7 versus the Pats. We've seen Rico bomb on the Ravens. So, I mean, I love that. Even they against the Vikings, it was the end of the game. We were losing, but they threw a little screen to him, and he just went 50. Like, he just took off and went 50. Nobody could catch him. Like, it just added 50 more yards. So, yeah, he's a breakout candidate. I love him.
Do you guys think he's locked better than Devonta Smith, like 100%?
I think his ceiling is higher than Devontae Smith's, just because of the archetype of player he is. I think Devontae Smith has insane talent, but I think that when you have somebody who has the high catch point ability of Waddle, even being as short as he is, and the speed that he has, plus being on point, like him and Tua just have such a crazy connection. His ceiling is Reek, realistically. Like, his ceiling is Tyreek Hill. So if he hits that, or if he's just 10% below that, like, I just don't see Devontae Smith getting that crazy.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a pretty valid mentor of the week there. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of, you guys know I'm a big fan. He's mad swaggy, doing his dance and all that. So I definitely think he's gonna be pretty good. Go ahead, Cranes.
I'm so happy I have him on my team. Every time I think about doing trades, literally, I'm like, I can't trade Jalen Waddle. He's literally on the Dolphins. I love him so much. Like, I could never trade him.
How do you feel about Dynasty? 100%.
Yeah, man. I've been trying
bro.
to hit you up, and like, I'm thinking, like, there's no way I could hit you up for Jalen, bro. You'll never give him up. Like, shit.
Oh, no.
So my Menta of the week is very interesting because you picked a Menta of the week on my team, and I picked a Menta of the week on your team. And my Menta of the week for this week is Brandon Cooks.
Wow.
He's had a really, really, really tough start to the season. But guess what? This week he is setting the trade market for himself. He's telling everybody in the league, I am worth a first-round pick, motherfuckers. That's what happens. Nico Collins is out. Tennessee is 26 in fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. They're only 17th versus the pass in DVOA, but we've seen Tennessee. They literally got slaughtered by Buffalo. They're susceptible in the passing game. And Davis Mills, like Laramie Tunsil said, he's a dog. He's a dog. He hasn't been getting it done, but I think this is the week that he's going to force feed Brandon Cooks the ball. They're going to throw a ton because they are also a really tough matchup in the run game. So I'm looking for Brandon Cooks to get a ton of dump offs, he's a speedy type of guy. I know they kind of handled Pittman a little bit. He only had like 9 or 10 fantasy points, but Michael Pittman is a totally different archetype player. He's a big, stronger type guy. Cooks is a speed type guy, smaller, obviously can, beat you on goes and stuff like that. So I'm looking for Brandon Cooks to be my Menta of the week and have a pop off.
Damn, I did not expect that. That's kind of fire. Hopefully
Graham.
that comes to fruition, bro.
Rosie's tight with me because I chose an op.
You did choose an op. It's a good op choice because he's been money. Shout out to Chris Olave's uncle. He slid to Mambos, bro. What it is? He's wearing the Buckeyes
was that for
jersey.
real?
Yes, bro.
How did you know?
I've never seen somebody just walking in a college Ohio State Olave jersey, and I was like, all right, bro, I gotta go. Like, I brought him his food. I was like, yo, it's good. Like, I like your jersey. He's like, thanks. That's my nephew. I'm like, hey, that's what's up.
Nah,
So that's a small world. Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, so these mentas, I feel like they've got a pretty solid floor there. So it'll be interesting to see. My menta last week didn't hit with Gerald Everett. Really, I just think too much of the Chargers, man, because they just constantly fold. And that narrative is starting to pop up on Twitter a lot. This Tua might be better than Herbert narrative.
I don't want to get my
I don't know, man.
Nah, man. The thing is, and like
the fact that somebody asked you though is like, this is all I'm going to say on this is that when Herbert was balling, everyone was meat riding and giving this man the double Glock. When Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were healthy as hell, it was amazing. But with Tua, when he had the worst offensive line in the history of the NFL, and who were his receivers? I don't even remember his receivers. Isaiah Ford, like all these players.
Devontae Parker.
Like we were starting them, and oh no, it was canceled too. Coming off a hip injury, like all this stuff. I'm the person in our friend group who's like not that high on Tua. Like I don't believe in him that much. He's proven me wrong little by little. But it's just crazy the bias differences and how the situations are like exactly the same. But now they want to give Herbert the excuse. Oh no, your receivers are hurt. Like your offensive line hurt. Boo fucking who, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
The thing is with that, because I got a lot of Miami Dolphins fans at work, is that, and I kind of told you guys this a couple weeks ago, is that I'm a man of God, as Tua is, right? And I truthfully just think that when he's on the field, you can even look at it, he's had one pop game, throughout the whole season. But when he's on the field, everybody just plays better. That's why they call him God. Like, you feel me? Because it's just like that.
Yeah, but
I truthfully think that like when he's on the field, everybody raises their temperature. They're fighting a little bit more for this guy. So I think he just has that it factor. He's too likable. He's kind of the guy you want to play for, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I said it in the chat. He's got that +5 morale from Madden, but also Raheem Mostert in that little interview said that he just has like that aura around him that just kind of makes players like want to lock in and play better. And like, honestly, like statistically, Tua's stats, like they're pretty solid actually for the year, but they're not crazy, right? He's only had one pop game, but his QBR is just unbelievable. He makes incredible decisions. He gets it done. His fourth quarter stats are the best in the league. Like he's a really good game manager. Like I know you guys love saying that he's an elite game manager, but Tua can win games, man. Like we have seen Tua win us games and we have seen us lose without Tua. So until it is proven that Tua is an absolute folder, which is yet to be seen. He's pretty solid. He's been pretty solid for us. Like, I love Tua. Like, I really, really think he has what it takes to get it done. We've seen worse quarterbacks win Super Bowls. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, as of now, for sure, to me, he's capable of being a starter in the NFL. I'm sure there's like the Carolina would take him, the Texans would take him, the Falcons would take him. Like, there's tons of people in the league who would take him at the quarterback position. But I still take shit with a grain of salt just because, like, to me, he should have like 3 or 4 picks last week versus Pittsburgh. They really dropped some crazy stuff there. Huh?
He's rusty, man. Like, he's coming off a big brain rat.
Yeah. He came off a crazy thing. But yeah, we'll see this week. I think this week I'm expecting to see some talent from him. And yeah, with that being said, man, that's a wrap for this week's episode. No drama, any shots you guys want to send, any little messages you need to send to some ops and like anything like that? Has anything been on your mind?
No shots. I'm in last place. Fuck the whole league. I'm coming for smoke, but I love you all. Gang.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Sevilla. Like you got caught in 4K, man. Like this is a shout out to you. You was talking that talk. You took the Ellen Dynasty. You could have that. Like this is the Schwep universe. Like you better win this week. Because if you don't win this week and I win this week, we might flip in them standings, boy. You gonna be down in the the league's gonna be talking. They're gonna be Sevilla. Is Sevilla ass again? Is Sevilla ass again? Is he a one-hit wonder?
I like
my gosh.
That's gonna be tough, man. We'll see what happens. shout out to you, Ray. You got in your own mental this week versus me. Last week, as we should say, you overthink, man. You were a tinker. You tinkered with your lineup. You moved Terry McLaurin to the bench, and it just didn't work out for you. I don't know. I was able to catch the dub with no Josh Allen, no Dallas Goedert, and I got a 0 spot from Romeo Doubs right a goose egg, and you couldn't catch a dub. It's
Josh
crazy
Reynolds,
to me,
I
man.
guess me getting 1.8 from Josh Reynolds, I guess is kind of. I don't even want to look at Crayons. I'm kind of gonna block his screen right here, because I guess I kind of opt them out of Josh Reynolds, and that's kind of what.
Bro,
I
that was nasty.
Karma, bro. Mental karma.
That was
Crazy.
a nasty move. That was nasty. I didn't even see it until midway through the games, but I checked the messages and I was like, Cran said this. I was like, nah, that was a dirty move. That was nasty, bro.
Thank you for picking him up.
Yeah, it saved you. It dodged you a bullet. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, man, that is another wrap for this week's episode of the Schwep Fantasy Football Podcast. Just wanted to say thank you guys so much for supporting us. Thank you for watching the videos. Thank you for responding, hitting us up on the side, all that stuff. We appreciate the love. I just love getting feedback from you guys. Real quickly, though, I forgot we're supposed to do locks. We can throw those in really quickly. What were your guys' locks for the week?
Yeah, I got
Go ahead.
I got Cards plus 3.5. That's a lock. And I know Ray is calling me an op because I'm on the opposite side of his bet. And I got Pats minus 2.5. Fuck the Jets.
With me, of course, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Vikings. Okay, minus 3.5. Look, there's chatters. My boy Crane's one of the smartest dudes I know on this earth. But at the end of the day, when it comes to fantasy football, this isn't betting. This is me. It's my world. You understand? Arizona 4-12 straight up in the last 16 games against Minnesota. Arizona 0-10 straight up in their last 10 games when playing on the road in Minnesota. It seems like that Viking cold Kyler Murray midge. Look, I got him in leagues. He might have to get the sit, but we'll talk about it.
Ray loves following ancient stats from 12 years ago.
D-Hop.
In 2004, they beat the team by 50.
Look,
They're
remember when my boys lost to the Colts?
Hey,
My boys lost to the Colts week 1, and I told you guys, in Duval, we are dirty. Last week of the season, last year, where did we play? In Duval, we lost. This year, we lost. Numbers.
Hey, Ray said Bucks were the lock of the century, and Carolina beat the shit out of them. So I'm never taking Ray's bets again.
Hey, I can't. Hey, Tom Brady, what we doing, gang?
Yeah. Speaking of which, both of my locks hit last week. So I am 3-1 in the last 2 weeks. Last week I had Giants plus 3. They were able to win outright versus the Jaguars. And then I had Chiefs minus 2.5, and they were able to hit that bet as well. They actually cleared pretty easily in the end of that game there. So those were some hits. And then this week, my locks of the week this week are going to be the Dolphins minus 3.5. I'm doubling down on them. I think they're just going to have a really big week this week versus Detroit. Lions are 1-5 versus the spread. I just think it adds juice to the flame. I think the Dolphins are going to cover, and they cover better on the road, which is strange, but they are essentially better at covering on the road, which is really good. So Dolphins minus 3.5, that's lock 1. And then lock number 2, I'm kind of rethinking it after we've been speaking about Jamar, but I'm still going to ride with it. Bengals minus 3 over the Browns this week. I think it's going to be a nasty, nasty game. And I just got to side with Joe Burrow figuring out a way to win over Brisket in this one. And they've been rolling so far. So maybe they'll take a step back with Jamar being out, but those are definitely going to be my locks of the week. So yeah, I think with that being said, y'all boys, we're finished with this episode. Like I said, appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for all the love. And I'm going to kick it over to these boys and then we'll be out of here.
Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure. This one was amazing. It felt just like a super spew fest. Can't wait to have our boy Vega on next week. It's going to be a similar type of format where we're all just spewing, kicking it, just going over the matchups a little bit more of just like a more loose type of format. So I'm excited for that. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, you guys know me. Forever grateful. Always keep faith in God. Look, like my New York boys say, word to my mother, this is the most down you'll ever see me because I'm in last place, which is rare for me. Okay? So I need you guys, everybody watching, give me some calls, give me some voodoo. Rosie, holla at me on the side for some of that. I need some help, my boy. All right? Y'all boys have a good night.
Yes, sir, man. With that being said, last place. It's a wrap. We'll see what happens. Peace out, y'all boys. We'll see you next week, man.
All right, deuces.